This video is disseminated on behalf of Plurilock Security.
I am chatting with Ian Patterson, CEO of Plurilock Security. Ian, thank you very much for joining me.
It's good to be back. How are you doing, Mariusz?
Good, good. So you guys had a couple press releases, and I was wondering if you could, give us more color on what they mean, what's going on.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that opportunity. So we put out two pieces of news. So earlier this week, we announced a significant cost savings in the business, approximately $2.7 million annualized, effective as of around September 1st. And then the second piece of news later in the week was really a combination of multiple sales wins that we've realized over the last approximately 30 days. And both of those two pieces of news are really just a reinforcement of our strategy. So for those who maybe are new to the story or haven't heard about us in a little while, we are a cybersecurity service solutions provider. And what that means is that we provide capabilities to very large enterprises as well as public sector organizations. Think U.S. military, Canadian defense, etc. And all of these organizations are under regular attack. And they need service providers like us to provide them best-in-class capabilities, as well as people, services, to be able to integrate and operate those capabilities. Now, the part of the business that folks may be familiar with is called critical services. That's our high-margin consulting practice that has been growing at a very rapid rate, like we've talked about for the last couple of years, roughly doubling year over year for the last handful of years. And so what that has meant for us internally is that we have been refocusing our time and attention on that part of the business. And it has also allowed us to shed some of the legacy parts of the business that were not that are not growing as fast. And so at the end of the day, we're focused on growing gross margin, largely through critical services, which absolutely, signing new clients is a key component of that, while also reducing costs. And so we really wanted to come out and actually publicize the fact that we're able to both continue to accelerate while also reducing costs. So that's the summary.
On the cost reduction, what kind of things did you implement to be able to achieve such? Because these are big cost savings.
It is. So the history of Plurilock is that when we originally went public, we made a number of acquisitions. And so we were very fast. We acquired 4 companies between 2021 and 2022. And when you acquire 4 companies and you're already starting with one, so you really have 5 sets. You typically have 5 sets of accounting systems, 5 sets of sales systems. You probably have folks kind of doing similar work. And so what we have done is we have integrated those individual organizations into one platform. And then we're able to then kind of reduce the additional expense. So that's really the big picture. I think some of the other things specific to us is that we have a fully remote work environment. So it's very uncommon for us to go work in offices. But what that means is that we're able to leverage global talent, which might be at a price point different than it would be in North America. So that's also part of the playbook. The third one, and this might actually be a bit cliche, but we're just using a lot more AI in terms of what we do on a regular basis. Now, the AI that we use is both for the delivery. So for critical services, we leverage AI in the way that we deliver our services. But we're also using that internally in the back office. And so we've seen huge productivity boosts by refocusing some of our departments in the organization to be AI first or AI native. And I'll give you a practical example. Our marketing team is light years more efficient because they've made AI the central pillar in terms of everything that they do. So ultimately, deduplication of capabilities, leveraging global talent, and then really leveraging AI as much as possible. All 3 of those have contributed to that cost reduction.
And in the most recent press release, you talked about your pipeline for critical services. Can you talk a little bit about that and what type of what type of clients are in that pipeline?
Yeah, so critical services, like we've talked about in the past, this has been a very fast-growing part of the business, and much higher margin compared to the a traditional resell margin. So it's certainly been the biggest contributor of margin growth and margin expansion to the business. What we wanted to do was to articulate the fact that we've seen a large influx of opportunities coming to us. And I think that the reason for this is severalfold. First is that we now have 3+ years of track record with a lot of our original clients who have worked with us. They have seen us operate. They have seen the value that we provide. I'll give you a recent example. Just this past week, in fact, we were working on a very sensitive data security project for a global 2000 organization, publicly traded, and the premise of what we were doing was to help them secure data, but we actually found some unused servers that were still being paid for, cloud servers that were still being paid for, and it's risky when you have systems lying around, they're not being used, they may not be monitored. That's a great vector for bad guys to go compromise. But it was costing the business somewhere around $400,000 to $450,000 a year in expense. So as part of that project, we were able to save that client a huge amount of money, even though it was somewhat tangential to why we were there in the first place. But the reason I tell that story is that clients now have had a track record of seeing us do this repeatedly. This is not a one-off example. They're seeing the value that we can provide, and not only clients, but also partners. And so partners like TD SYNNEX, like CrowdStrike, like ForcePoint that we've publicized in the past, as well as others that are less well known that we haven't necessarily publicized. They are seeing the impact that we have with clients. As a result, they are contributing sales opportunities to us. So we have an existing sales force. We're seeing partner pull-through opportunities, and we're also seeing renewals and expansions from existing clients. And all of those together is generating a substantial sales pipeline at the margin rate that we're looking for, which is which again for critical services is in the 30, 40, 50% range, depending on the client and the project, etc.
Now, do your margins change if, let's say, the client is sent by your partner?
Sure. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, I would say that every client is slightly different. I mean, just as at a very practical level, public sector work is going to be a different margin profile than private sector work. Generally, when you're dealing with a federal government, they will mandate getting the best possible price. Similarly, the type of work that we do is also going to impact margins. So where we've tried to optimize is to focus on work that is in very high demand, where there's very few qualified people, and where our experience and our senior talent can really shine through. And that's really what we're optimizing for. I was talking to some of my colleagues in Canada, and if you're a large Canadian bank, for instance, or really a US bank for that matter as well, you're probably spending north of $1 billion a year on IT and cyber. And so there's a lot of work to go around. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to focus on the higher end, because that's where we've been able to demonstrate that we can provide a disproportionate amount of value to our clients.
And since you had, this $2 million of cost reduction, does this change like how much of gross profit you need in order to become profitable?
Well, certainly. And I think profitability is when our OpEx is less than our gross profit. And so what we've been focused on, and I think if folks review our annual financials, they'll see a steady uptick in gross profit. And what we're also calling attention to is the reduction in OpEx. And when those two lines intersect, that's when profitability arrives. So absolutely, those are two very important levers to achieving that goal.
Is there anything that you can say on possible uplisting in the US, NASDAQ? I know we've had previous conversations about it, but is there anything you can share?
Well, I think that we're always looking for ways to create shareholder value, and we were very public last summer. In fact, we put out a press release indicating that we were reviewing U.S. strategic options, which certainly could include an uplist or something of that nature. And we continue to look at it. I think what's interesting right now is that there's a rethinking of defense procurement that's happening around the globe, and I think having more notoriety would assist with being able to capture some of those opportunities, and so that that certainly could entail doing something strategic. And so absolutely, it's something that we spend time looking at and evaluating, and it absolutely is still top of mind.
Are you saying that if Plurilock was listed in the US, you would have an easier time getting some of these contracts?
Not necessarily. I mean, we do a significant amount of business with the U.S. government today. Roughly 90% of our revenue comes from the United States, of which a huge chunk of that is public sector, which largely is U.S. federal. What I actually mean is true notoriety, and I think a senior exchange, whether that's NASDAQ or other, could help with that notoriety. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to take any options off the table, because I think that there's a different environment today versus maybe last year or the year before, that we want to evaluate and see how that can benefit our shareholders. Okay.
Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share?
Well, I think that the big thing for us, we're very focused on operations, and the fall is usually a good time of year for us. And so looking ahead to contracts and winning new business, whether that's in North America, whether that's in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. One of the things that is different this year is that we're seeing some pull from Europe, from EMEA. And that's something that we're also looking at. And I think, it's a great time to be a cyber company right now. There's a lot of concern in the world. Cyber threat actors and bad guys are making a ton of money from the damage that they're doing. And companies, every year, companies need more and more and more cyber defenses to stay current, meet their regulatory obligations, and stay safe. So it's a great time to be a cyber company today.